Ah, welcome back. Welcome to my thoughts. I just came out of a yoga session. Every day I have this yoga routine that I almost a year have been doing that almost a year for every single day. And it has been a very interesting process. One part of it that I want to share with you today is the conversation that I get with my body, when not always, but sometimes. Just a natural way of having a conversation with my body, and it links into this technique that I learned from a good friend of mine. He came with the knowledge to me, and it's called TRE, trauma release exercises, and he explained it very well. He said, when animals experience some kind of trauma, whenever something really intense happens, like when animals get into a fight or, basically any very intense situation, after that situation is done, you often see animals shaking. They shake it off. We even have a saying, right? Shake it off. There is this thing that the body does to release trauma, to release a tense situation, and your body has its own memory. It has a memory from what happens in your life. The things get kind of stored into your body, and if you do not release that trauma or that stress, it gets really hard within the body, and your body becomes less flexible and less functional over time. That's how you also see people walking, like old people, right? Or nowadays, I guess also young people, like old people, that they kind of curl downwards, like their back becomes very stiff, and they kind of get that arch in their back that they don't really get out anymore. And that's kind of stored stress that they either got from physical labor or emotional labor, and they never release that. And so then it gets hard because there's this myofascic what's it called? Myofascic tissue of or fascia, people call it. It's kind of like you have your bones, you have your muscles, and then you have your myofascic tissue that kind of holds everything together. And from my understanding, there's a lot of memory in that, and you can really play with that basically. So what happens is, if you can look this up, the TRE, trauma release exercises. You should look this up, and it's very interesting because when I learned this, I tried it out, and it felt really weird because we are kind of taught that uncontrollably shaking and just letting the body do what the body wants to do, we have a lot of opinions on that. We have a lot of thoughts on how the body should move, and that we always have control basically. And you could, but then you never really release anything because you keep your body in some kind of stress position. But if you look into this TRE, and it's kind of, if you don't want to look it up, it kind of looks like people having seizures. They like, you trigger something in the body where the body just starts shaking. And kind of the idea of it is that you just stop pushing your body to do what your mind wants to do, and you just kind of detach your mind from your body, and you just let the body do what it wants to do. It just makes movements. You lay down on the ground, it just starts to make movements, and you let it go. And you, in my understanding, is that I just get a conversation with my body. Now, what does that look like? For the other people around me, it looks like I'm shaking in a very weird way. But for me, I completely understand what is happening. Now, my mind doesn't necessarily understand why, if I have tension in my left shoulder, my mind doesn't really understand why my right leg is twitching, or why my right leg is having a spasm, basically. But my body does, and my body knows very well the ways that it has to move to release stress, or to release a sore muscle, or like to really get that tension out of the body. But my mind really doesn't, and that makes it very weird at the beginning when you're starting to do the TRE stuff, because you're doing stuff, or your body does stuff, and you don't really understand, and you really have to go through with it for a few weeks to really understand what is happening. I can remember the first time that I really understood the power of this was when I did it a few times, and I really started to understand my body. I saw what my body wanted to express, and at some point, like, the results don't necessarily come in the exercise or after the exercise. The results mostly come from the rest that you take after the exercise. So you have to drink a lot of water afterwards, and you should sleep well, which you should anyways, I guess. But what I noticed is that the muscles that were very tense before, and even the muscles that I don't know, right? Sometimes your muscles get sore where you didn't even know you had muscles. Well, that's the body. That your mind doesn't really understand your body. The body just does what it needs to do. But I noticed that some muscles were really getting looser, and in a very direct way, all of a sudden, when I wasn't doing anything, when I was just relaxing. And that's when I understood, like, oh wait, my body really knows what it's doing. Like, the body is here to fulfill a function, and the body always wants to do it properly, and so it always wants to heal itself. But we keep on interrupting it, and we keep on forcing it to act normal, basically, or we force feed it all kinds of trash, and then it's not gonna work properly. But if you really get into this habit of getting a conversation with your body, it's a beautiful thing. Sometimes I've seen, not with my mind, but with my awareness, I have seen the entire structure of my entire body from within. I've seen the way the muscles get into a certain kind of path, like the pathways throughout my body. Now, I can't explain it, but I do feel it, and I do understand without my mind being able to exactly tell you all the details and stuff. There's just this inherent knowing of how the body functions, and we choose to forget that. We choose to not pay attention because I guess we're just taught in mostly a mental way, and so we kind of forget that there's a different kind of knowing other than being able to completely explain every single detail from your mind. I really think that we kind of lost our faith and our confidence in our bodies. Part of it is that we never really got taught that, but also a part is that we have been eating worse and worse food, and on top of that, there's this psyop going on where it's just more profitable to get people to think they can't trust their body and that they have to intervene with every single thing. I guess we're just not taught that, and I find it very interesting that when I'm doing yoga, I kind of force myself to get into this conversation with my body, even if I don't want to, even if my body feels bad. Even if I feel really bad, I still do yoga just to get this conversation going. And that conversation can be very annoying. This conversation can be very unproductive. But I keep on getting that conversation because as I'm doing that, I get to know my body better and better. And in that way, I can also tell myself the way I should be fixing things. Instead of asking other people how to fix my body, I can ask my own body how to fix my own body. And that is really interesting. And I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about this, but it's such a powerful thing to be able to converse with your body. It's just a beautiful thing. So I just wanted to share it with you, and I really want to ask you to check out TRE. You really just have to watch one video, and you don't really have to get into it. You don't have to understand it a lot. You just need to understand how to trigger the release exercise, or to trigger the release response of your body. So basically, if you just use especially your leg muscles, because your leg muscles are the biggest muscles. If you sit in a squat, for example, or sit against the wall, and you use your leg muscles to about 70% ish to what they can actually do, you just get them tired enough, and then you will notice that your legs will start shaking a little bit, and basically that's it. If you normally we want to control that shake, because we think the shake is bad, but the shake's actually really good. So if you start to really listen to that shake and lean into it, basically, so you're letting it shake, and then the shake gets larger and larger, and if you then go and lay down and tune in with that shake, then you will notice that the shake will go to your legs, to your toes, to your ankles, and then you can understand maybe it can also go to your shoulders or your neck, and in that way you start the conversation. And sure, maybe it's not the most effective right away, because you have to get used to it, right? But just do whatever the body feels that you're doing. And I notice even if I'm listening to some music or to some podcast, even my mind can be distracted and my body can do its thing, and in that way you can also just play with it. But it's different per person, so I really want to invite you to just try to do that today. Try to even just for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, or even get just the shake. I mean, just do something to tune into your body in a way that you exclude the mind, basically. Just let the body finally have its time for a little while. Yeah, okay. I've said enough now, I think. Just go do that, and I'll see you later.